The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched upward like a cathedral made of starlight. Floating platforms held representatives from 12 ancient species, their forms ranging from crystalline beings who sang their words to massive slug-like creatures who communicated through color changes in their skin. At the center of it all, a single holographic sun provided warm light to every corner of the massive chamber. Park Ji-woo stood on humanity's platform, her hands clasped behind her back. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines on her face that spoke of difficult decisions. Behind her stood Lee Tai-ho, her aide and advisor, a man who had once commanded soldiers in Earth's last great war before humanity reached the stars. 30 years. That was all the time humanity had spent among the stars as members of the Galactic Coalition. In cosmic terms, they were infants. The Orani, the oldest species present, has been sailing between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. The Orani, matriarch, floated on her platform across the chamber. She was beautiful in an alien way, with skin like flowing silver water and eyes that held the light of dying stars. When she spoke, her voice was soft like silk, translated perfectly into every language present. "We have heard the concerns of the human delegation," the matriarch said. "The Velthari Empire's movements near your colony worlds are noted." "Shh. Noted," she repeated. "Matriarch, with respect, 3 million humans live on those colony worlds. The Velthari have destroyed 17 of our cargo ships in the past month. This is not a matter to be merely noted." A ripple of amusement passed through the assembly. The Kreth representative, an insectoid being with compound eyes that reflected the light like jewels, made a clicking sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "Young species always worry so much," the Kreth said. "The Velthari are simply establishing their borders. Your colonies are in disputed space. Perhaps you should not have expanded so quickly." "Lee?" Tai-ho felt his jaw tighten. He watched his ambassador maintain her composure, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "The Coalition Charter," Park Ji-woo continued, keeping her voice steady, "promises mutual defense for all member species. We are requesting that the Coalition honor its promise." The chamber fell into a murmuring discussion. Representatives consulted with their aides, their voices creating a buzzing hum of different languages and sounds. Park Ji-woo waited, her eyes fixed on the Orani matriarch. After several minutes, the matriarch raised one flowing hand, and the chamber fell silent. "The council has discussed your request," she said. "We have decided that intervention is not necessary at this time. The human colonies in the outer regions serve as a useful buffer between Coalition core worlds and the Velthari Empire. Their current position is strategically valuable." Park Ji-woo blinked. "A buffer," she said slowly. "Yes, your species has proven quite resilient in harsh environments. Your colonies can absorb any Velthari aggression, while the Coalition prepares a diplomatic response. This is the most logical course of action. You're asking us to let our people die." The matriarch's silver face showed no emotion. "We are asking you to serve your function within the Coalition. Every species has its role. Yours is expansion and colonization of dangerous territories. The losses, while regrettable, are acceptable within the larger strategic framework." The word hung in the air like poison. Acceptable. Lee Tai-ho stepped closer to his ambassador. "Ji-woo," he whispered in Korean, using her first name for the first time in years. "They're not going to help us." Park Ji-woo did not respond immediately. She looked around the chamber at the ancient species on their floating platforms, at their alien faces that showed varying degrees of boredom, amusement, and indifference. She thought about the 3 million humans on those colony worlds, families, children, people, who had trusted the Coalition to protect them. "Ambassador Park," the Kreth representative said, "you seem distressed. Perhaps you need time to accept the wisdom of the Council's decision. Young species often struggle with the larger view of galactic politics." Park Ji-woo reached down and touched her translator device. With a soft click, she turned it off. The chamber fell into confused silence. Without her translator active, no one could understand what she was about to say. She turned to her delegation and spoke in Korean, her voice calm and clear. "We are leaving. Gather everything. We will not return to this place." Let them spend the next century wondering what I said in this moment. Li Teho felt something cold settle in his chest. He recognized that tone. He had heard it once before, years ago. When a general had spoken those same words before launching humanity's final unification war, the human delegation began to move. Aides gathered their materials. Security personnel formed up around the ambassador. Ambassador Park, the Owarani matriarch, called out, her silver voice carrying confusion for the first time. Where are you going? We have not concluded the session. Park Ji-woo did not turn around. She did not acknowledge the question. She simply walked, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. The other species watched in growing unease. No one walked out of the Galactic Assembly. It simply was not done. The coalition had maintained order for 10,000 years, and in all that time, no species had ever simply left. This is highly irregular, the Kreth representative clicked. They cannot simply leave. There are protocols. The Orani matriarch raised her hand again, but this time it was a gesture of uncertainty. Let them go, she said softly. They will return. Young species always do. They will realize they cannot survive without the coalition, and they will come back properly humbled. The great doors of the assembly chamber closed behind the last human. The sound echoed through the hall like a distant thunder. On her platform, the Orani matriarch felt something she had not experienced in 3,000 years. A small, cold whisper of doubt. She dismissed it immediately. Humans were young, foolish, emotional. They would learn their place, as all young species did. She was wrong. 6 months passed, and Earth went dark. Admiral Kang Do-yan stood in the command center of Earth's unified military. Deep beneath the streets of Seoul, the room buzzed with activity as officers moved between holographic displays, showing every human ship, every colony, every asset scattered across the galaxy. He was 67 years old. With white hair cut short and a face carved by decades of war, he had fought in the unification conflicts that had finally brought Earth together under one government. He had watched cities burn and rebuild. He had believed, perhaps foolishly, that humanity had left such violence behind. Now he understood that they had only been practicing. Admiral, a young officer, called out, "The last of our engineers have left the Kreth station. They're asking why we're abandoning our contracts." Kang Do-yan replied. No response. This was the plan. Complete silence. Every human ship that had served coalition trade routes had quietly returned home. Every human worker on alien stations had packed their belongings and left. Every human soldier in coalition peacekeeping forces had simply walked away. The galaxy had called humanity expendable. Now they would learn how much they had depended on those expendable workers. Across the command center, a door opened and a young woman entered. Captain Kong Yuna wore the uniform of the Earth Navy, her black hair tied back in a tight bun. She was 34 years old, and she had inherited her father's sharp eyes and stubborn jaw. "Father," she said, approaching his position, "the carrier Jindo is ready. We're fully crewed and loaded." Kang Do-yan looked at his daughter. He remembered her as a child, running through the gardens of their family home, laughing at butterflies. Now she commanded a warship. "The Jindo will take position near Nubusan Colony," he said. "The Velthari will strike there first. It's the largest human settlement in the outer regions."
I know.
Yuna's voice was steady. "We'll be ready, Yuna." The Admiral paused, searching for words. "If we do this, there is no going back. We will be at war with the Velthari, and possibly with the entire coalition. They called us expendable, Father. They were going to let 3 million of our people die because it was convenient." Yuna's eyes hardened. "I am ready." Kang Do-yan nodded slowly. He had raised her well. Across the galaxy, the elder species were growing nervous. On the Orani homeworld, the matriarch received daily reports of human disappearances. Trade routes that had relied on human cargo ships were failing. Stations that had employed human engineers were experiencing breakdowns. The galaxy, it seemed, had built more of its infrastructure on human backs than anyone had realized. Send them a diplomatic message, the matriarch ordered. Inquire about their intentions. The message was sent. No response came. The Kreth were more direct. They sent a military vessel to Earth's solar system demanding answers. The ship was met at the border by 12 human destroyers that appeared from nowhere. Turn around, the human commander said simply. This space is closed. You cannot close your own space, the Kreth captain protested. The coalition has freedom of movement rights. We are no longer part of the coalition. Turn around or be destroyed. The Kreth ship turned around. When its captain reported to the Kreth Council, his compound eyes were wide with what might have been fear. They have been building, he reported. The ships I saw were not old designs. They were new. Military vessels of a type we have never seen. And there were many of them. Deep in Earth's shipyards, the construction continued. Factories that had once built farming equipment now produced weapons. Scientists who had designed medical devices now created targeting systems. Every resource humanity possessed was being directed toward a single purpose in his command center. Admiral Kang Do-yun reviewed the production reports. In 6 months, humanity had built more warships than they had possessed in their entire 30 years among the stars. New weapons systems, based on technologies the Coalition had considered too dangerous for young species, were being installed on every vessel. A message arrived from an Oorani spy who had managed to intercept a human transmission. The Admiral read it and smiled grimly. Remember what they called us? Expendable. That phrase had become humanity's battle cry. It was painted on the sides of warships. It was whispered in the barracks where young soldiers trained. It was the answer to every doubt, every hesitation. On the colony of New Busan, the civilians were being evacuated to underground shelters. The planetary defense systems were being activated. Military supplies were being distributed to every citizen old enough to hold a weapon. Governor Shin Mina addressed her people via broadcast. She was a small woman with gray in her hair and steel in her voice. The Velthari are coming, she said. The Coalition has abandoned us, but we are not alone. Earth has not forgotten us. Our brothers and sisters are coming. She paused, her eyes burning with determination. And when the Velthari arrive, they will learn what humanity does when we are pushed against the wall. In orbit above the colony, Captain Kang Yuna watched her tactical display. The Velthari fleet was approaching, their crystalline ships, gleaming like deadly jewels against the darkness of space. She touched the communication panel on her chair. All ships. This is Captain Kang. The enemy approaches. Remember New Seoul. Remember the cargo ships they destroyed. Remember every human they killed. Her voice hardened. Today, we teach them what expendable really means. The Velthari fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their commanders confident and relaxed. They expected frightened colonists, and perhaps a few outdated defense ships. What they found was the entire Earth Navy waiting for them. The Velthari had conquered 100 worlds. Their crystalline ships were considered the finest in the galaxy, grown from living minerals that could repair themselves during battle. Their warriors were tall, elegant beings with skin like polished glass and minds as cold as the void between stars. They had never lost a war, Admiral. Beth Corin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Radiance, watching the human fleet arrange itself in a defensive formation around the colony world. He counted the enemy ships with mild curiosity. 47 vessels, his tactical officer reported. Mostly destroyers and cruisers. One carrier, significantly smaller than our fleet. Corin made a sound of contempt. They actually intend to fight. How amusing. Signal all ships to advance. Standard conquest formation. This should take no more than 3 hours. The Velthari fleet began to move. On the bridge of the carrier Jindo, Captain Kang Yuna watched the enemy approach. Her hands were steady on the armrests of her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity. Enemy fleet advancing, her tactical officer reported. They're using their standard attack pattern. No deviation, Yuna smiled slightly. The Coalition had detailed records of every Velthari battle for the past 1,000 years. They always used the same formations. They always followed the same strategies. Why change something that always worked? Today, it would not work. All ships, Una commanded, execute pattern thunder. The human fleet exploded into motion. Instead of holding their defensive position, they charged directly at the Velthary formation, breaking into smaller groups that weaved through the enemy lines. Like wolves among sheep, Admiral Corrin's confidence wavered for the first time. What are they doing? This is madness. They should be retreating to protect the planet. But they were not retreating. They were attacking with a fury that made no tactical sense. Human destroyers rammed themselves against Velthary cruisers, unloading their weapons at point-blank range even as they died. Fighter squadrons flew directly into the mouths of enemy guns, sacrificing themselves to create openings for their companions. And through it all, the humans were singing. Lieutenant Cho Minji flew her fighter through a storm of enemy fire, her squadron close behind. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had gone cold the day that Velthary destroyed the transport ship carrying her parents and younger brother. Phoenix Squadron, follow my lead, she commanded. We're going for the flagship. That's suicide, one of her pilots responded. The Eternal Radiance has the heaviest defenses in their fleet. Then we'll die killing it. Anyone who wants to turn back can leave now. No one turned back. The squadron dove toward the massive crystalline flagship, their fighters dancing through defensive fire that should have destroyed them 10 times over. Mingi flew with her teeth bared in a savage grin, thinking of her mother's smile, her father's laugh, her brother's dreams of becoming a doctor. 6 fighters fell, then 8, then 12. By the time Phoenix Squadron reached the flagship, only Minji and 3 others remained. But they had found something the Velthary had not expected. A gap in the crystalline hull, barely large enough for a fighter to enter. The hangar bay. We're going in, Minji announced. The fighter won't survive the landing, her wingman protested. I know. She flew her damaged fighter directly into the flagship's hangar, crashing through defensive barriers and enemy ships. The impact nearly killed her. She felt ribs crack, tasted blood in her mouth. But she was alive. Emergency systems ejected her from the burning wreck of her fighter. She landed hard on the crystalline floor of the Velthary hangar, surrounded by enemy soldiers who stared at her with confusion. A human. Inside their flagship? Impossible. Minji rose to her feet, blood running down her face, and raised her rifle. My name is Cho Mingi, she said, her translator turning her words into the musical language of the Velthary. Your people killed my family. I am here to return the favor. She opened fire. Outside, the battle raged on. Coalition observers, watching from safe distance, recorded everything with growing horror. Human ships fought like nothing they had ever seen. Captains who should have retreated instead pressed forward, dying to buy their companions a few more seconds of opportunity. The Velthary fleet, so confident at the battle's start, was being torn apart. Admiral Corrin watched his forces crumble and could not understand what was happening. His ships were stronger. His weapons were more powerful. His warriors were better trained. But the humans would not stop. They would not retreat. They fought like beings who had nothing to lose. And then his bridge exploded. Cho Minji stood among the ruins, her rifle empty, her uniform soaked with blood both alien and her own. She had fought her way through 16 decks, killing every Velthary who stood in her path. Now she faced Admiral Corrin himself, the commander who had ordered the attack that destroyed her family's ship. You, Corrin whispered, his crystalline face showing something that might have been fear. You were just one human. One small, fragile creature. Minji pulled her combat knife from her belt. That's right, she said. One small, fragile creature. And I just killed your entire flagship. Imagine what a billion of us can do. She moved forward. When the battle ended, 11 hours after it began, the Velthary fleet was destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. Human ships hunted down every escape pod, every fleeing vessel. Every survivor. The galaxy watched the recordings in stunned silence. On Earth, Admiral Kong Doyon broadcast a message to every species in the coalition. This is what expendable looks like. Remember it well. The elder species remembered. And for the first time in 10,000 years, they felt real fear. The Galactic Assembly had not known panic in 10,000 years. Now, it trembled. Representatives gathered on their floating platforms, their alien voices rising in confused shouts and accusations. The holographic sun at the center of the chamber flickered, its calm light seeming wrong in a room filled with such chaos. The Orani matriarch raised her silver hands for silence. But for the first time in living memory, no one listened. The humans have destroyed the Velthri Fourth Fleet. The Kreth representative clicked frantically. Destroyed it completely. Not a single ship escaped. That was the largest Velthari military force in the outer regions, another delegate called out. How is this possible? They are a young species. They were supposed to be primitive. The matriarch finally managed to restore order. Her voice, still smooth as silk, carried an edge of steel it had never held before. We must invite the humans back to the assembly, she announced. We must resolve this situation through diplomacy. They will refuse, the Kreth said. They have ignored every communication for 8 months. Then we will make them an offer they cannot refuse. The matriarch's flowing silver features arranged themselves into something resembling determination. Send our message through every channel. Tell them we are prepared to meet their demands. Tell them they will have a seat at the council. Tell them whatever they need to hear. The message was sent. 3 days later, the humans responded. Ambassador Park Ji-woo returned to the Galactic Assembly. But everything had changed. When she had walked out 8 months ago, she had been alone, except for her small delegation. Now, she was accompanied by 50 armored soldiers, their black uniforms bearing the symbol of the unified Earth forces. Above Kethra Prime, 7 human warships held position, their weapons charged and ready. Lee Tai-ho walked beside his ambassador, his sharp eyes scanning the chamber for threats. He noticed how the representatives leaned away from the human platform, how their alien eyes followed the armored soldiers with barely hidden fear. Good, he thought. Let them be afraid. Park Ji-woo stood at the center of her platform, her gray hair pulled back severely, her face expressionless. She waited for the chamber to fall silent before she spoke. I've returned, she said simply. You called this meeting? Speak. The Orani matriarch rose, her silver form flowing gracefully despite the tension in the room. Ambassador Park, she began. The coalition wishes to express its deepest regrets for the misunderstanding that occurred during your last visit. We have reconsidered our position regarding your colony worlds. We are prepared to offer full military support against the Velthari Empire. Additionally, we wish to grant humanity a permanent seat on the Elder Council, equal in status to any other species. Park Ji-woo listened without expression. We also wish to offer substantial reparations for the hardship your colonies have endured, the matriarch continued. Resources, technology, whatever humanity requires. We value your species greatly and wish to repair our relationship. The chamber waited in tense silence. Park Ji-woo smiled. It was not a warm smile. You misunderstand the situation, she said. We did not return to negotiate. We returned to deliver our terms. A murmur of confusion swept through the assembly. The matriarch's silver face flickered with uncertainty. Terms, she repeated. The Galactic Coalition is dissolved, Park Ji-woo announced. Effective immediately. A new organization will be established, the Galactic Confederation, with humanity as a founding member equal to any other species. All previous treaties and agreements are void. New ones will be negotiated under the new order. The chamber erupted in protest. The Kreth representative rose, his compound eyes blazing. You cannot dissolve the coalition, he declared. It has maintained peace for 10,000 years. You are children. You have existed as a spacefaring species for mere centuries. You cannot dictate terms to civilizations older than your entire recorded history. Park Ji-woo turned to face the Kreth directly. Can we not? she asked softly. Look above your planet, Kreth, representative. How many of our ships are currently in orbit? How many soldiers do we have stationed at your borders? How long do you think your ancient civilization would last if we decided you were expendable? The Kreth fell silent. You taught us something valuable, Park Ji-woo continued, addressing the entire assembly. You taught us that age means nothing. Power means everything. You showed us exactly what kind of galaxy this is. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the platforms. You showed us that we could expect no mercy, no justice, no protection from those who claim to be our allies. The Owarni matriarch attempted to speak, but Park Ji-woo raised her hand. We learned your lesson well. Now, it is time for you to learn ours. She produced a document, projecting it holographically for all to see. These are the terms of the new confederation. All species will be equal in law and protection. No species will be considered expendable. Any member who threatens another will face the united response of all others. Voice hardened. And there is one more condition. The Velthari Empire will face a war crimes tribunal for their attacks on human colonies. Any species that provided them aid or refused to help us will be investigated as well. The matriarch's silver face had gone pale. Ambassador, she said carefully, surely we can discuss these terms. They are very aggressive. Perhaps a more balanced approach would benefit everyone. There is nothing to discuss, Park Ji-woo replied. You have two choices. Accept these terms and join the new confederation, or refuse and face the consequences. What consequences? The Kreth demanded. Lee Taiho stepped forward, his military bearing radiating threat. We have 140 warships, he said calmly. We have weapons that can crack a planet's crust. We have soldiers who believe death in battle is an honor. And we have 8 billion humans who remember what you called us. He let the words sink in. Expendable. The silence that followed lasted for a very long time, one by one. The representatives began to signal their acceptance of humanity's terms. The Owarni matriarch was the last to yield, her silver face twisted with an expression that might have been shame. We accept, she whispered. Park Ji-woo nodded. Then let the new age begin. 5 years had passed since the galaxy changed forever. Admiral Kang Do-yan sat on the observation deck of Unity Station, the structure once known as Kethra Prime. His white hair had thinned, and his hands trembled slightly with age, but his eyes remained sharp as ever. Beside him, his daughter Yuna watched ships from a dozen species pass by through the great windows. Do you remember the day we walked out of the assembly? She asked softly. I was not there, he reminded her, but I remember watching the broadcast. Ambassador Park, turning off her translator, speaking words that no one else could understand. He smiled slightly. The galaxy spent months trying to decode what she said. What did she say? Nothing special. She simply told her delegation to leave. The mystery was more powerful than any words could have been. Kreth trading vessel passed by the station, its insectoid crew visible through the transparent hull. They moved quickly when they saw human officers watching, their compound eyes reflecting something that might have been nervousness. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. The Galactic Confederation had replaced the old coalition, and humanity sat at its heart, not as conquerors, but as founders. Every species was equal under the new laws, exactly as Park Ji-woo had demanded. No one would ever be called expendable again. But equality did not mean the elder species had forgotten their fear. The recordings of the Battle of New Busan had spread across every world. The image of human ships charging into certain death, of soldiers singing as they fought, of a single woman cutting her way through an enemy flagship. These images haunted the dreams of creatures who had never known defeat. Father Eunice said, "Do you think we did the right thing?" Kang Do-yan considered the question carefully. We did what was necessary, he finally answered. Whether it was right, history will judge. On the lower levels of the station, Commander Cho Min-ji walked through the corridors of the joint peacekeeping headquarters. Her face still bore the scars from her assault on the Velthari flagship, pale lines across her cheek and forehead that she refused to have removed. She commanded the Confederation's first combined species peacekeeping fleet. Her crew included Orani navigators, Kreth engineers, and warriors from half a dozen other species. They worked together uneasily, old prejudices dying slowly. An Orani officer approached her, his silver form rippling nervously. "Commander," he said, "there is a dispute in the engineering section. The Kreth engineers claim the Velthari technicians are deliberately sabotaging the sensor array." The Velthari had been defeated in the war but not destroyed. Under the new Confederation, they were required to contribute personnel to peacekeeping efforts, paying their debt to galactic society. But old hatred died hard on all sides. "I'll handle it," she said. She walked into the engineering section to find a Kreth and a Velthari, screaming at each other in their respective languages. Translators struggling to keep up. Other crew members had gathered to watch. Choosing sides along species lines, Minji slammed her hand against a metal panel. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. "Enough," she commanded. Everyone fell silent. They looked at her with a mixture of respect and fear. This small human woman who had killed an admiral with her bare hands. "We are not the old coalition," Minji said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "We do not divide ourselves by species. We do not blame children for the sins of their ancestors. If you cannot work together, you will be removed from this ship and reported to your respective governments." Her eyes swept across the gathered crew. "Am I understood?" The Kreth and the Velthari nodded reluctantly. "Good. Now, shake hands." The two aliens stared at her in disbelief. "That is a human custom," the Kreth protested. "We do not have such traditions." "You do now. Shake hands." Slowly, awkwardly, the insectoid Kreth extended a clawed appendage toward the crystalline Velthari. Their limbs touched briefly, and something changed in the room. A tension that Mingi had not even noticed began to ease. "That is how the new galaxy works," she said. "One handshake at a time. Now get back to work." On Earth, the changes were visible everywhere. The planet that had once been divided into warring nations was now fully united. Its people proud and confident in ways they had never been before. The phrase expendable had become a battle cry, a reminder of how far humanity had risen. But some wounds did not heal so easily, Ambassador. Park Ji-woo had retired to a small farm in the Korean countryside, far from the politics and power she had wielded. She spent her days growing vegetables and reading old books, trying to forget the weight of history on her shoulders. Lee Tai-ho visited her sometimes. He had aged as well, his sharp face now lined with the marks of time. They would sit on her porch and drink tea, watching the stars appear in the evening sky. "The Confederation is stable," he reported during one such visit. "The Orani matriarch has stepped down. Her replacement is more cooperative. The Velthari tribunals are proceeding smoothly. Justice is being done." Park Ji-woo nodded, but said nothing. "You should return to public life," Lee Tai-ho suggested. "The people would welcome you. You are a hero." "I am tired," she replied simply. "Let younger voices speak for humanity now. We have done our part." On a distant colony world, a young girl named Yoon Hana sat on a hillside with her grandmother, watching human patrol ships cross the evening sky. She was 8 years old, too young to remember the war, too young to understand what her people had endured. Her grandmother, Baek Sungja, was 73 years old. She had been on New Busan when the Velthari attacked. She remembered the bombs falling, the shelters shaking, the moment when human warships appeared in the sky like avenging angels. Grandmother Hannah asked, "Why do the aliens always look at us so strangely? Like they're scared of us?" Sunja looked down at her granddaughter, this innocent child who had been born into a galaxy remade by human hands. "Because, little one," she said softly, "they finally see us clearly." "What do they see?" Sunja thought about the question. She remembered the arrogance of the elder species, their casual dismissal of human lives. She remembered the fury of humanity's response, the terrifying beauty of their vengeance, and she remembered what came after. The new laws that protected everyone equally, the tribunals that delivered justice, the handshakes between former enemies, They see, she finally answered, that we are both terrible and wonderful, that we can destroy or create, that we will never be pushed aside again. She pulled her granddaughter close. They see that we are human, and that is enough to change the stars. Above them, the patrol ship continued its journey across the sky, a symbol of humanity's new place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. As founders of a new order, as beings who had proven, through fire and blood and sacrifice, that they would never be expendable again. The galaxy had watched in terror. As humans stormed out of the assembly, now it watched. In wonder, as humans helped build something new. And, for the first time in 10,000 years, the future was uncertain. Not because anyone feared destruction, but because anyone could rise. Any species could grow. Any voice could be heard. That was humanity's true gift to the stars. Not weapons. Not war. Hope.